What's your biggest fail when it comes to online dating? Matched with someone on a dating website before Tinder. Got to talking, seemed like a chill dude, even though there were red flags. He insisted we were dating before we met, and I wasn't allowed to talk to anyone. Agreed to meet up with him at a cafe by work. Organized with my receptionist, she would ring me at an allotted time and tell me I had to come back to work, so I had an out. Met with the guy for coffee, it seemed well enough. Then my girl rang me, so I told him I had to get back. His response was, "I've got my work van here. Do you want to jump in the back and have a quickie?" I noped out of there and went back to work. A couple of months later he ended up coming into my work to see my boss. I made polite small talk with him then. When he left, my boss called me into her office to ask how I knew him. Turned out he was married to my boss's niece, and I dodged a ducking bullet. Update: sorry to leave you all hanging. Boss believed me, and we never spoke of it again. I was too embarrassed to raise the subject again, because I keep my private life private, and her because I assume she kept that stuff between her and her niece. My boss was also a black belt in jiu-jitsu, so not the person to duck with. Yes, I should have known better when he got possessive straight out the gate, but I was young, insecure, and lonely. It's not a crime to want to be wanted, but good lord was I a naive fool. Met with a girl at a bar in Philadelphia on a Friday night around 6 p.m. It was fun, and we drank a lot, but I noticed that she was pacing much faster than me. I had around 4 beers in the time it took her to drink 7 martinis, $15 a glass. We are getting along well, and she says that she needs to use the restroom. She took her jacket and purse to the restroom. I didn't think much of it, but after an hour of sitting at the bar alone waiting, I realized that I got used for a heavy pregame. The bartender kinda realized it. When I asked for the tab, he shrugged and was like, "Crap happens, mate. I took 2 drinks off your tab." I was talking to a girl who mentioned that she was into photography, and I asked her to send me some pics. She thought I was asking for nudes, so she deleted and blocked me. Edit: whoa, this blew up. I realize I worded the question poorly, and I went to explain myself, but I then found she blocked me. I have 2 even worse ones, so I'll tell those too. I just didn't expect this comment to get so popular, so I didn't go into too much detail. I talked to a girl who lived in a town 25 kilometers away. She was nice and pretty, so I asked if she wanted to meet up, and she said yes, so we met up at her farm. She was a terrible conversationalist. I couldn't get her to talk about anything, and when I talked about myself she seemed really bored. I was halfway through a sentence before she interrupted me to suggest going to the takeaway shop in town. We went there, still terrible conversation, decided to talk about my trip to London, and that actually got her going. She talked for 5 minutes about how she always wanted to go to Canada as a little kid, and that the next year she was finally going to get married. Honestly thought she was joking, but later realized she was serious about it. The rest of the date went pretty bad too. We didn't watch a movie like we planned. We watched the rest of the movie she had started watching the night before. She took a bite of her burger and threw up in the toilet for 10 minutes because it was too greasy or something. She then suddenly remembered she had to go pick something up from a mate 70 kilometers away, and I needed to leave immediately, so I did. Had no interest in dating her after that, obviously. The next day I decided to text and ask how she was, cause she mentioned going through depression recently, and I didn't feel right just ignoring her after that. It's been almost 2 years since that date, and I'm still waiting on the reply. And lastly, my 4th date on a dating site went horrible as well. I thought this girl was perfect, and we actually spent the whole day together. When I got home we still talked, and I thought it was a sure thing. 2 days later she stopped messaging me altogether and told me the day after that we need to break it off because she recently started seeing someone else and feels bad just abandoning him like that. It broke my heart, but we remained friends. I asked her out again a week later, and she said yes. We've been together a year and a half now. I matched a girl who looked really cool and complimented her hair. She responded with something along the lines of, "I'm so glad you messaged me. Most of these guys just match and never message." I've seen almost exactly the same line before from bots, so I assumed she was a bot and said something snarky about it. She replied, upset, and then unmatched me. I feel her pain, and had that before myself. Bit of a backstory, I'm a casual gamer, like motorbikes, used to ride them, cars etc. Pretty much chilled and happy doing whatever, so long as I get to spend time with people I care about. Apparently that qualifies as a bot. It's not a nice feeling when someone doesn't think you're a person and you then question yourself thinking crap, is this how people see me? Using Plenty of Fish, the free dating site. It was like the Netto of dating sites. I chatted briefly with one woman before telling her I was going out for a few drinks. Next day I checked my messages and she had sent some. It started with why don't you come round to mine and get tipsy together, progressing to why are you ignoring me, then to I think you're gorgeous and we will be good together, and finally don't you ducking ignore me. I sent her a message the next day to never contact me again. I once told a guy via text I had to go because my lunch break was over. When my shift ended there were tons of angry messages from him asking where I was and why I left so suddenly. I told him it was because my break was over and I can't text when I'm at work. He then started apologizing to me and told me he was afraid he had lost me and that I hated him. We had known each other for 3 days and we had never met in real life. Someone without a profile pic messaged me out of nowhere saying she didn't like typing on her phone, so do I want to meet up for breakfast someday. I generally only go out with people I've talked to for a bit beforehand, but her profile said she worked in psychology and I've usually gotten along well with psychologists in previous dating, so what the heck, right? So we schedule a time at a nearby restaurant and, of course, she just doesn't show up. Fortunately I just gave up after 20 minutes. She apologizes later in the day, mentions she overslept her alarm and offers to make it up to me by going out for coffee in the evening. For whatever reason I agreed. I get to the cafe and sure enough I'm waiting another 20 minutes past the time we were supposed to be there, though this time she texts me she's on her way just as I was leaving. So another 20 minutes and she's there. Surprisingly she was pretty physically attractive, but that's kind of where the attraction ended. Over the course of the date she continuously nagged me about everything I said. Said she didn't believe there was an opioid epidemic and I was an idiot for thinking there was. Said she didn't believe mental illnesses were real and you could just get over them if you tried hard enough. Revealed she wasn't a psychologist, she just had a psychology degree and was an Uber driver and a grocery cashier. That she had 2 kids, but that I didn't need to worry about them. I didn't need to worry about the kids because the courts took away her custody of them and gave it to her parents. I don't need to worry that she was still married because her husband was in jail and they were in process of divorce, and spent a significant amount of time complaining about how messed up the courts are to think she's unfit to be a mother. Now, all this wasn't my biggest online dating mistake. The actual mistake came when she mentioned she'd really love to meet my dog and play with him. I'm a bit naive sometimes in dating situations, so I thought my dog loves people, so it would be nice if him getting to play with someone new came out of this train wreck of a night. Needless to say, she was not interested in playing with my dog. When we got back she pretty completely much ignored my dog entirely and kept trying to pull me onto the bed. I use a giant beanbag for a bed and it's in the living room. I'm weird. I wasn't interested though. I've been in relationships with unstable people and it's not worth it. But she wouldn't stop. Kept undressing more and more, was getting frustrated at me just standing near the door. I kept politely mentioning that I was tired and needed to work in the morning, so it's probably best if she left, but she refused. She kept saying she was too tired to drive back home and she needed to take a nap here. Given she seemed unstable and I was realizing the gravity of my mistake, I said that was fine and set an alarm for her. Though of course when the alarm went off she still refused to leave. So I ended up with a nude, mentally unstable woman passed out on my beanbag while I sat in a chair hunched over my laptop working all night so she wouldn't try anything. Fortunately in the morning she did leave. A few days later I got a really angry text from her because my dating profile was still up and apparently she thought we were in love now. I told her I didn't feel the same. Fortunately she didn't remember what apartment I was in and I'd mentioned it in passing to the leasing officers. A few weeks later they mentioned someone fitting her description had asked for which apartment I lived in. TL. Doctor, a series of poor decision and a mystery date ended in a nude, mentally unstable woman passed out on my beanbag refusing to leave, and is the reason I will no longer use Uber when in that city. I got more matches on Tinder posing as Adolf Hitler than myself.